again, Year 5 and Year 6, and happy Monday. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend and you're ready for a new week of learning. Now this week we are combining our reading, writing and learning journey into a series of tutorials and lessons for you. Okay, so there won't be any separate sort of science writing this week. It's all going to be combined into one daily video for you. And this will start on Monday the 25th of January and go right through till Friday. So each day, Mrs. PA or myself will post a video talking you through that day's learning journey and writing. And we're going to be focusing on answering one question this week, which is, how does my description of Aaron Moore's storm create a picture in the imagination of the reader? Okay, now don't be put off by that question, Year 5 and 6. Sometimes on a first read they can seem a bit complicated, can't they? But I'm going to talk you through each step of the way. Now we're using the Stormkeeper's Island from your reading lessons with Miss Hike as our inspiration for this question and our writing. We're going to be using the task wheel, which is very similar to the plan, do, review cycle that we've used in science. So we start by identifying our task and thinking about what we already know. We start by, and then we move on to generating ideas and planning and writing. We have our first draft, which we review and evaluate, and we make our second draft. We then share our learning with somebody else and review what we've learnt this week. We are continuing with the same term gateway. So this term's gateway is Explorers. And this is all about following my passions and seeking challenges in order to aspire to be the best version of myself. And we've been thinking about two key questions, haven't we, this term? How have I shown determination and perseverance? How can I use reflection to make a decision when faced with a challenge? Okay, and this week there'll be a series of different challenges to hopefully suit everybody both in school and at home. So some children will be creating a learning journal as we do in school. And children, you'll know exactly what I mean by a learning journal. I'm thinking about our black books with the sort of lovely thick paper in. So some of you will be creating your own learning journals at home and at school, while others may think, actually, I'm not quite ready for that challenge yet. I'm going to focus on just completing the written tasks each day. Okay, so it will be up to you and your grown-ups at home about the level of challenge that you choose, Year 5 and 6. And some days you might decide to do the learning journal, and other days you might decide just to do the written task, and that's fine. Okay, so let's have a look at our task wheel then. The first section, the first thing we need to do is gather and organise. And that means thinking about what do I already know. So just like we do in school, we're going to start by unpicking the question. Okay, so we're going to read through and identify the key parts of the question, identify things that we already know and things we're not sure about. So, how does my description of Aaron Moore's storm create a picture in the imagination of the reader? Now, Year 5 and 6, I'd like you to pause the video, please, and write that question in your learning journal or on a piece of paper at home, and then take your time to identify the key words, the words you already know something about, and words you're not sure about. And then when you've done that, come back to the video and we'll unpick the question together. Okay, Year 5 and 6, hopefully you've unpicked your question at home. We're going to have a look at it together now. So, I'm going to underline the words that I think are important. They might be the same or different to yours, and that's okay. How does my description of Aaron Moore's storm, okay, I'm not sure about this word, create a picture in the imagination of the reader? Okay, now I picked out how to begin with, because when I see the word how, that normally means that I've got to do some explaining. I've got to say how it works or what didn't work and why. And it normally involves some reflection, saying what went well, what didn't went well, what I could improve. Okay. Now, my description makes me feel like I'm going to have to do some writing this week about a storm. Okay, and if it's my own work, my own writing, that means it's going to be unique to me. Okay, now Arranmore is the setting for the Stormkeeper's Island. Okay, and I know that a storm is to do with the weather. So in my writing there'll be aspects of rain, thunder, lightning possibly, clouds, maybe the moon if it's at night, perhaps waves and rocks. Okay, so already I'm starting to think of the type of picture that I'm going to be creating in my reader's mind. Okay, so I've got a little bit of an idea there about what I already know and what I'm being asked to do. Now, for those children who are going to focus on creating a learning journal this week, I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining to you what you'll need to do. If you decide that that's not for you and you just want to focus on the written task that comes along in the next 5 minutes, then that is also fine. So if you're going to create a learning journal page, remember this is the first page in your book, we start by writing the question and underlining it with a red pen or a colour pen that you've got at home. And then we record what we already know. And there's a few different ways that you can do that year 5 and 6. So one way that you're familiar with is using a mind map. So in the centre you put your idea or your theme that you're writing about, and then for each colour branch there's a different focus. So when I think of the storm, I think of rain and hail. So I've done my green branch here, I've put my thought, and then I'm going to have arrows coming off of my thought, and I'm going to add in here rain. What could I say? Oh, I'm going to say torrential rain. That means it's not stopping. Okay, and then this other branch, this next branch is a different colour and it's a different theme or idea this time, thunder and lightning. My third branch is again a different colour because it's a different theme or idea. I've recorded all my ideas about the wind. I could say whistling wind, for example. My last section, or second last section over here, is sea and waves, so I could record everything I know about the sea and waves in a storm. And then where can I get ideas from for how they're described? Well, I could look in newspapers, I could watch the news and the weather forecasts. I could look at stories, poems and films. I could even have a look at social media now. There's something called a storm chaser. They quite often film storms and place them on YouTube or Facebook. Okay, if you're going to do your research, just check with a grown-up that they're happy for you to use social media in that way. So a mind map is one way of recording what you already know. You might decide to do that for storms. You might decide to do that for the island of Arranmore as well. Other things that we've recorded on front covers at school. We've thought about in the past what we already know about description. So I already know some key things about description from my learning in Miss Hike's lessons. We've been learning about vocabulary, onomatopoeia, personification. We already know about using our senses to describe. I already know that I can use verbs and adjectives. We've also been learning about coordinating conjunctions and subordinate clauses. We've learnt about embedded clauses and relative clauses. Now, although they may not be directly linked to description, anything that's going to describe my nouns, such as relative clauses, It's going to add to that description, isn't it? Other things we've included then are questions. So questions that come up about storms in this case. What colours can I see? What can I hear? How do I feel? What can I smell? And other things we've done at school include getting pictures or drawing our own pictures and recording vocabulary around them. And we've also recorded quotes and sayings when we've been doing this at school as well. And one that popped into my mind is, in this case, the calm before the storm. So Year 5 and 6, if you're challenging yourself to create your own learning journal at home, I'm going to ask you now to pause the video and get started with that. If you're not doing that, then stay with me and we'll move on to the next part of our task wheel. Okay, so the next part of our task wheel then is just to identify and clearly understand what our outcome will be. So on Friday, by the end of this week, you will have a description which creates an image in the reader's mind of a storm hitting Arranmore Island. Okay, now a description could be a few sentences, it could be half a page, it could be a full page, it could be a paragraph. Okay, you need to challenge yourself, okay, to write the best description you can, and that's part of that gateway, isn't it? Persevering and challenge. Okay, so hopefully now then Year 5 and 6 you're clear on what your task is. Now, what does a good description look like? What does it include? Now, I've got an example here of a description for you. It's not about a storm. I won't tell you what it's about, but I'm going to ask you now just to pause the video and to read this description. And once you've read it, just think about what makes a description successful. So what makes a good description? And when you've got an answer, come back to the video. Okay, we're going to read through the model together then. All the time you're going to be thinking about what makes the description successful or good. The darkness swallowed the light of the moon. Okay, so it's dark. That light from the moon is gone, blanketing any sense of hope as a grey mass swept across the sky. Now, what do we often see that's grey in the sky sweeping across? That's right, clouds. So it's a cloudy night. The darkness has swallowed the light of the moon, so it's extremely dark. From above, everything was silent. The guardians of the forest had twisted and knotted their ancient branches together, welcoming victims in through an archway. Okay, so what are the guardians of the forest? They've got branches. Brilliant, they're the trees, aren't they? So the trees have twisted and knotted their branches together, welcoming victims. Oh gosh, what does that word make you feel? Is this a safe place? In through an archway. Now, if you're not sure what an archway is, it would look like this. And what you'd have is you'd have the trees coming up, their trunks possibly like this, and then their branches with the leaves twisting and turning. Okay, not a great drawing Year 5 and 6, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to show you. Okay, that would go all the way through the forest, creating an archway. Okay. Beneath my feet, or under my feet, a soft white mist illuminated the path ahead. So it's a misty night that the path is lit up by this mist. Dry twigs cracked and rustled as I crept along. Deep in my chest, my heart beat like a drum, willing me on. Until I could be certain he was safe, I could not stop. The icy wind whistled through the mist and whipped mercilessly at my face, stinging my cheeks. Okay, hopefully you spotted something about the start of this sentence. Until I could be certain he was safe. What sentence starter has the author used there? A writing technique we've been learning about. Okay, the stench of rotting leaves forced itself into my nostrils, but I walked, pushed myself further into the darkness. Turning around, I caught a glimpse of something evil, something ominous, moving towards me. I froze, still, silent like a statue. Suddenly, and without warning, dum dum dum, what happens year 5 and year 6? So, now the first thing that really stood out to me when I read this, and again it might be the same for you, it might be different, that's okay, is just the vocabulary in this is just beautiful. It really does create a picture, and it uses all of the senses. So smell, sight, taste, touch, and what we can hear. Let's pick out some of the key words then. Darkness, swallowed, blanketing. Instead of clouds, we've got a grey mass sweeping across the sky. Silent, not quiet, but silent. The guardians of the forest. Now, if something's a guardian, they keep it safe. They protect it from harm. So they haven't used the word trees. They've used this description instead. Twisted, knotted, ancient branches, victims. What does that give you in your mind? An archway, soft white mist, illuminated, twigs cracked, rustled. What type of words are cracked and rustled? That's right, we've got onomatopoeia there. Heart beat like a drum. What writing technique have we got here with like when we're comparing the beating of a heart to the beating of a drum? Brilliant, we've got a simile. Icy winds whistled, whipped, stinging my cheeks. Ooh, stench. It's not a bad smell, it's a stench. Rotting leaves, nostrils. Pushed myself further into the darkness. Ooh, I caught a glimpse. Now that just means I saw a little bit of it. Just at the corner of their eye perhaps. Evil, ominous. That means we've got a bad feeling about something. And then these short, sharp sentences. Froze, still, silent like a statue. Again, we're comparing, so we've got a simile. Suddenly, without warning. Now to me, year 5 and 6, the vocabulary in this just really brings that imagery and that picture to life for the reader. Okay, let's look at our task for today then. Now, we're writing about a storm. So I've given you, and this is where we're going to be generating ideas, year 5 and year 6. So it's generating ideas. It's almost like starting a bit of a plan really today. You're going to use, now it doesn't matter if you're doing your learning journal or the writing task, okay? You're going to use the resources that Mrs. PA and I are giving to you to gather or write down vocabulary that can be used to describe storms. And you're going to use a mind map to do this. Okay. Now, we've got lots of things to help you that you can access on Class Dojo. So we've got a sound clip of a storm, and you can click on a YouTube link to find that. I've got a copy of a weather report that you can read and pick out keywords from. You've got access to the Stormkeeper's Island, Miss Hike's videos. You've got your own ideas about storms and your own knowledge. And you can use a thesaurus or Google to add to those ideas. Okay, and your challenge, year 5 and 6, is to record similes, onomatopoeia, personification, alliteration that you could use in your writing. The list really is endless there. I've put ... Really challenge yourselves. Now I know lots of you have done a mind map before, and I explained earlier in the video how they work, but very briefly, you'll have storm in the middle. You might decide to focus on writing about the waves in a storm first. Remember, the Stormkeeper's Island is at sea, so we'll have something about the waves and the sea in one colour. Then in a different colour we'll have something about the thunder and lightning perhaps. Then in a different colour we'll have your vocabulary about the wind maybe and the clouds. In fact, you might decide to have one area of vocabulary focusing on the sky and the clouds. Okay, so your task then, year 5 and 6, is to write down as much vocabulary as you can that can be used to describe a storm. And you're going to use a mind map to help you organise and write down your ideas. You've got lots of things that you can access on Class Dojo to help you. Okay, and then your challenge is to also start to think about similes and onomatopoeia and other things that I've listed here and some of your own knowledge to really bring that description to life. As always, year 5 and 6, when you've finished, please share your work with Mrs. PA and myself, and we can offer you feedback, hints and tips, and we can help you reflect on the how your description creates a picture in your reader's mind. Okay, good luck everybody. I can't wait to see your mind maps. Have a wonderful day.